morning. It's 10 o'clock and we're in London. A simple question for you. Is there a prejudice against children? And if so, to what extent is it justified? Those are questions that surface in and around Christmas. The routine of school ends, the family festival begins, but for some people, as you'll discover, the one big, happy, well-behaved family image is one that they don't actually recognise as being part of everyday life, not that often. If I can start with Peter, I know you run a hotel. Do you welcome families with children to your hotel?
It's a country house hotel. The answer is no.
Why?
Because a country house hotel, I believe, is a place where people can go for peace and quiet in the country. We started 12 years ago. We put in a swimming pool 4 years ago. Children in swimming pools, in my experience, can't help making a noise. And so I have regrettably said, I'm sorry, we can't afford to have an army of supervisors, therefore we cannot have children.
And you want the peace and the calm and the tranquility of the countryside for your guests?
It's the people that I am, catering for, hoping will come to my hotel.
So it's not that there's nothing in your body chemistry, it's because you're trying to run a hotel which will attract lots of customers, and you think children might make them never come again.
Exactly.
Right, well now just stay calm for a second or two. You run the other end of the sort of catering spectrum, a pizza parlour, restaurant, a pizza restaurant. Do you welcome youngsters in?
To a certain extent, yes.
Why only to a certain extent?
It really depends on how well they're behaved.
And what do you deem as being the point where you want to get them out?
When they start throwing things. Or standing on chairs, running around the tables, and just generally making a nuisance of themselves.
Do you find that people don't look after the kids properly?
That's it. It boils down to parental guidance, really.
So when you feel that they're not being looked after for you, do you actually say out?
No, not really. You can't really say that.
Do you then say, please don't come here again?
No. I'll go over and say to the parents or the children, if you can sit down and behave yourselves. I won't actually say, don't come again or get out.
Sorry, I need to go on.
Yeah, is it a particular type of customer? Like a class structure problem?
Not really, no.
It's
a
quite across the spectrum.
Yeah.
Can I ask who else runs a business or lives in a situation where they basically would prefer not to have too many youngsters around too much of the time? You would prefer not to have too many youngsters around?
We bought a flat in a conurbation which specifically states in the lease children are not allowed to live, or not allowed to live, but to play within the grounds of the flats. And we both work in television, we both write a lot. So the holidays are horrendous because people buy flats where we live, they don't read the lease, saying children can't play when there's a park across the road, and they think they can go on their skateboards and their bikes and create hell and pandemonium.
And if you ask them to stop, if you say, would you mind, you're not allowed to play here, then they do it all the more, they throw things on your balcony, and you're abused constantly then, and you get sort of shouting and screaming, so they let you know they're coming round, you get sort of whelped.
We have 3 schools to the north of us, and the private notice on each entrance to the flat saying no public through thoroughfare, private property, keep out. Hordes of children come through from school to the bus. They break plants, they steal from other people's property, they even steal prams with baby's linen in it.
I think you might get a bit of stick in a moment, is it?
In fact, I would say I loathe them.
Is the one last person prepared to expose the fact that they have got... Have you got a certain reasons for thinking that...
Well, I'm involved in therapy, and one of the things that happens at the centre where I work is that people bring their children when they come for treatment, and they often let the children run screaming around the hall, banging on therapy doors where people are being treated, and people find it terribly, terribly disruptive and very upsetting.
So what you increasingly are saying is, if you're coming for therapy, please do not bring your children.
Or please be well educated enough, or to be able to handle the discipline of your children.
Well, no, hang on.
I think she's right, because women understand or parents understand how their children behaves. And they should understand the people who have all these hotels and business. If they don't want children there, they should understand. They shouldn't attack or abuse those people who have stopped these children coming there, because children can be...
Can be a pain.
Yes.
Right, well, I presume everybody is unanimously on the side of the hotelier, the pizza parlour and everybody else, and wishes that there's no discussion to be had. No one wishes to argue, do you?
It's just one thing you're missing out, that even when I was a kid, growing up is part of being a terror. I mean, I used to go down Apple Alley scrumping, knocking on doors and things. I think growing up, you do naughty things. I think we all do naughty things, but I think, like, my parents were brilliant. They brought me up the right way, and that is if your parents bring you up the right way, you turn into a nice chap. I'm a very nice chap.
All right. No one wishes to argue with the hotelier? No one wishes to say that he wants... Do you wish to say something to him?
I'd like to say something about the hotelier, and that is that I think a lot of hoteliers think that their customers don't want children around, and think that if they go to a hotel with children, they're going to disrupt the great British silence. But in fact, I don't know how many hoteliers have actually asked their customers whether or not they would mind children. And I think if there was a general poll done among people who travel in this country, they would find that people don't mind other people's children. If they don't want to take their own, it's all very well to leave them behind. But children are generally quite well behaved. If their parents decide they're sort of capable of behaving in public, then they probably are. It's unfair to discriminate.
So do you think he is showing an unreasonable prejudice?
I think it's not for the hotelier to decide. I think it's for the parent to decide. If their children are capable of behaving in public...
This is a free world.
Yeah, if you don't want somebody in your business.
Everybody's entitled to put a stop to what? I mean, they are entitled to say, we don't want children in our hotel because they're a nuisance to us.
But he's
They are
discriminating
entitled to do that.
He's
And the
discriminating
parents who
against
doesn't
the whole
agree
section
with
of
that.
society.
Let me offer you another little angle of what might be seen by some as a prejudice. Who was it tried to buy tickets
I
for the
did.
carol? Yeah.
But my husband went to buy tickets for the children's carol concert in Albert Hall and was told that he couldn't bring our little girl, our 2-year-old, because she was too young. Now, that to me is like, why do you have a children's carol concert if you can't bring children? I mean, why don't you have an adults carol concert so we can all sit there nicely and listen to this? But I think children only learn how to behave in public if they are brought in public.
Did you ask him from what age?
Yes, 5 and up.
So if you're under 5, they couldn't go to the
Under
carol
5, you
concert.
can't go to this concert.
Angela, can I ask you, I mean, do you think that it is reasonable for certain lines to be drawn? A line to be drawn on the carol concert at one stage, a hotelier to draw a line at another, a pizza restaurant gentleman at the end of the day to say enough is enough?
Well, I think it's fair for people to run their businesses the way they want to within the law without being too discriminating, but I do think the Brits do have a problem in their attitude to children. I think they're not at ease with children as a whole. I think they tend to talk down to their children. And they also have this other idea that if you give a child a lot of love and attention, you're spoiling them. They think a good kick up the bum is character building. It's a basic attitude, I think.
But that doesn't mean you have to buy them so many things, do you?
Oh, no, I didn't mean that.
Right, you totally disagree. Come
I
on.
have 9 children.
Yes.
And I totally disagree with the people who say you cannot bring your children. I really object to these hoteliers saying children are not brought here, but you cannot blame them because children in our society behave so abominably.
That's down to the parents.
It is down to the parents.
If the parent can't control their
They
children,
should not take
surely
them
it's down to the parent, isn't it? I mean,
So you're not attacking actually the owners of the hotels or the supermarkets or the pizza parlours.
No,
at the end of the day, you're saying it is always the parents.
It is the parents. It is the parents. It is down to the parents.
Children properly.
Well, I wonder.
Can I just go back to
I want to bring in this young lady. Yes.
How many of these people have actually of the hotel people have actually tried it with children? How many people actually know what it's like? And maybe adults actually do like it with a little bit of joy and spirit from the children.
You think there's a Well, I mean, if
for these people who were born middle-aged and frumpish and never enjoyed the excitement of ever being young themselves, I feel very sorry for them.
But you think that in a nice, peaceful, quiet country hotel, the noises from the swimming pool, where lots of kids are shrieking and yelling, are a part of life's pleasure?
Certainly, and I think that if you children are merely young adults, and if you treat them with the respect that you treat adults, then you'll get that back. If you treat them as something to be petted, then they will respond in that way. I feel very sorry for these people born to be born as middle-aged. It must be dreadful for them.
Julia Newberg.
It's a very particularly British problem. Angrad's quite right, because what actually happens if you take your children abroad, and particularly I think to Catholic countries, I think that Ireland and Italy are very good examples, where the children are treated just as part of the rest of society. They're not discriminated against. They're expected to behave. Everybody expects them to behave, not only parents, but the general society expects them to operate as ordinary members of the society. And they're treated like real individuals, and they're talked to like real individuals, and not told to shut up.
Parents are put in this in society because they cannot control their children. They're trying to put the blame on society because they cannot.
You want to put the blame on parents? Do you accept that the blame should go on parents?
No, because if you segregate mothers or families and their children, and they have to eat in different places, go to different places, how are the children ever going to learn how to behave properly?
Hang on, can I just talk? You see, the argument, I think, is that all these business people are trying to run calm, successful, happy, loving businesses, but they feel that incompetent parents are allowing chaos to break out, and therefore they'd rather slam the door. Now, what would you say to them?
That's just an excuse, perhaps the parents would be more competent if they had grown up in a situation where they were in close contact with competent grown-ups all the time. I mean, it can only go by example, and if the only example you have is your parents, and if your parents are not competent, then how are they going to grow up?
That is wrong. You cannot put that kind of criteria on parents. How the hell do you explain, say, Olivia Shannon, that died from an overdose, heroin and drugs? Her old man's a minister, for Christ's sake. Lovely mother, lovely family. You know, she has made her own choice. She has made her own choice as to what she is doing.
But with respect, we are actually talking about young children and about the parental responsibility. We're not talking about the drugs world. We're not talking about the drugs world.
No, I know, but in example, Mike, it's still exactly the same. The child, adults misbehave, children misbehave. They are each their own individual person. You cannot say, because your child does this, that is the parent's fault. That is rubbish.
Victoria Gillett. Hang on. Whoa. Victoria, you have how many children?
I have 10.
Right.
I have 10 children, but...
How much do you acknowledge that the prime and secondary and all the other responsibilities for making sure that they walk around supermarkets properly and well, that they never misbehave, that they don't shout in swimming pools, is yours?
Oh, it's entirely mine.
You accept that responsibility?
Yes, it is, but hold on a second. I think that the problem is, it's lovely to see children in restaurants. Families gathered. There's nothing nicer than to see families out together. That really is the case. But what's happened, I'm absolutely sure of this, is that families are not used to sitting and eating together at home. They eat at different times. They eat in front of the television. I mean, how many children sit round? How many families sit round and have a meal at set times, even at the weekend? They've grown out unaccustomed to doing it. That's the problem. You do, but you'll find you're in the minority.
But I mean, are you arguing that if the family table at home does not exist as a family table, why should it exist in an outside restaurant?
Well, it's very difficult for children to learn how to sit and talk to their parents and behave and enjoy company and conviviality if they haven't had it at home. It's rather like the same problem you get in theatres. You'll find an awful lot of theatres will say children don't know how to sit and watch a live performance because at home they've sat and watched television, chatted, made noises, thrown things, got up and walked around. And so they don't know how to behave in certain situations.
I brought my child to the theatre from the time she was 3 years old, and she knew how to behave.
Hang on.
You know.
I'm coming down here.
The situation abroad, you see, is so very different. I mean, it might be something to do with the weather, in as much as we're all outside anyway. But in Italy or France, children from a very early age are used to being taken out to eat. It's a natural occurrence to take your children with you. How can we expect British children to behave in public if at home they are segregated and sort of kept in different parts of the house?
Well, then I think what we are doing is we are, in a sense, supporting our hotelier and our restaurateur.
No,
and we are saying, I think if we pick up the Victoria argument, she is saying if the parents are not trying to bring up up the children correctly in their home, it's hardly surprising that other people don't want them to go into the
I
restaurant.
think it goes further than that. With hoteliers and restaurants, I think it's actually very different because, in fact, there's not a lot of money to be made out of children. And I think hoteliers will say that children are bad for business because it is expensive to actually have a child in a hotel or a restaurant because a family in general expects that the child should have some reduced prices in terms of meals or a bed or whatever else. And to the hotelier, it actually costs them the same amount of money. So they discourage children because it's actually bad for business.
Well, let's find out what the hotel... You've been sitting here very quietly, so you've heard quite an amount of attack about the fact that kids should be...
There is a growing number of country cottages, self-catering establishments, and if the mothers and the parents are so keen on their children, why don't they take them away with them on holidays and leave the hotels to more senior people who've had their own children, they've enjoyed their own children.
No, whoa, hang on, whoa. Can we just get back to the hotelier? You see, I mean, I think some people will feel that you are arguing a sort of a rather elitist situation, that the good and the well-behaved and the well-off can come to your hotel and the peace and tranquility of your swimming pool.
No, I'm looking after certain types of people that I can best look after. It's a commercial organisation, as so many other things are in life. We are more and more in a sort of structured society, and therefore, I think, let the children go to either self-catered, let them go to other hotels. I'm one of very few people who said, I'm sorry, we cannot reasonably accommodate your children. Go to the hotel down the road.
Well, young man wants to say something.
I'd like to ask the hotelier, what age is a child? How old is a child? Is it 4 or 5 or is it 15?
Well, we're going to pause for it, but it's a pretty good question. Where do you judge a child as being below the level of mission, and where do you begin to believe that a child actually is mature enough to be welcome to your hotel?
Well, I banned them under 18, mainly because it was...
If they've got girlfriends, no chance.
Right, I want any under 18-year-olds out there watching this programme to be very aware of the fact that they cannot go to his hotel. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Playing with things like pastry and clay all help with their coordination. So we don't want to be distracted by wet bottoms. That's why we use Pampers Boy and Girl. I've always used them on my baby, but the other babies tend to turn up in all sorts of nappies. For example, one day last week, little Annabelle was wet when she got here, so I sent her home in Pampers. And now Annabelle's really dry and happy. But if I did need to convince a mum, I'd show her this. If you take a section from an ordinary nappy, and the same from a Pampers, and put them in equal amounts of water, this one only absorbs some of the water, but the Pampers Special Lockaway Core soaks it all up. So even these water babies, a dry baby.
Pampers, even when they're wet, they're dry.
I didn't like myself like this, so I went to Jenny Craig and lost 12 pounds in 5 weeks. The menu's fantastic.
Very quick to prepare.
And you lose weight. The counsellors understand your problems and help you cope with them.
The way men treat me now, I feel so feminine.
My husband's really proud of me. People tell me that I look good now, and I know it.
Jenny Craig helps you lose weight and keep it off. Give us a call for details of this week's special offer.
If you want to change, call Jenny Craig now.
We run a very fair house here on Sundays. Mum sticks the lunch on, Dad sleeps it off. And I recycle the dishes. God, see the grease on that? Looks like Dad's used it for an oil change. Mind you, when it comes to knocking grease on the head, this fairy liquid's a serious piece of kit. It's kind to your hands, Mum says, and it cleans right through to the squeak. No messing. Here you go. Perfect results every time.
Let us know if you need a hand, son.
Fairy cuts grease to the squeak.
Christmas comes but once a year, and when it comes it brings good cheer. But the night before can bring some fleck, if PG's not in Santa's sack.
Blooming slimline chimneys, me poor feet. I'd slay for a cup of PG tips. Fancy calling a reindeer strike on Christmas Eve.
Cooey! Mr. Santa?
Not another mum with a mistletoe.
It's your PG.
There's no other tea to beat, PG. It's the taste. Leave some for Santa.
Welcome back. Let me introduce you to a very particular story about what could well be argued as a bias against youngsters. You took your young boy, age what?
Yes, he was 3 at the time, and
To a boarding house?
we went to a boarding house at Blackpool, and Toby at the time had a tracheostomy, and the people there were so...
Which meant that he had a lot of bandages and...
No, he just had a little tube in here that he breathed through, and the people there didn't seem to mind, but the people who actually ran the boarding house were so worried that it would upset everybody else that they took us out of the dining room at meals and stuck us in the sitting room on our own, and I was so hurt. And I have met that story again and again and again, and if the British public can't accept a little handicapped boy, they're certainly not going to accept ordinary children. And we found that when we went to Spain. The Spanish people are so much more tolerant for children than the British people can ever hope to be.
I think it's very
Well-
historical in Britain, because for certainly the top part of our society, children have always been segregated with their nannies, with nursemaids in a separate part of the house, and brought down to their parents at a certain time when they're well behaved. So a lot of people don't actually know what normal behaviour is like in a young child.
Well, let me try and introduce a slight good side of the story. Hang on a second. Carolyn, you've done an analysis of hotels which welcome children.
Yes, I mean, our new guide,
It's called
the
And Baby
Moreno
Comes
guide,
Too.
Heinz and Baby Comes Too guide.
OK, you've done the plug for it, now put it down.
It's specifically looking at this area. There was nothing comprehensive that actually tackled hotels, pubs and restaurants, even tea rooms in this country, that actually was a comprehensive guide. What we found when we sent not only the regular inspectors out, but 20 mothers and children out, well, there were only 440 restaurants, hotels and pubs in this guide that were actually catering for families.
And did the analysis of those hotels lead to your beliefs that there was a real negative prejudice in the others, or simply that they were intent upon running an efficient business and it was profit that was...
I think there's both sides to the argument. You know, people look at things in a different way. There are some that do not want to encourage, like the gentleman over there, families. There are others that try not to make it that important. Interestingly enough, I mean, the North and Wales was very good. They're much better at coping.
So the south of England seems to care less?
Yes, well, I think that's because the south of England has more of a single bias towards it anyway.
And when we're talking about analysing these places, we're talking about some places having good swimming pools, nice bathrooms, all sorts of nursery rooms.
Like food and toilet facilities and high chairs. I mean, this is for the 0 to 5-year-old.
And where a young lad with a tube in his throat would be welcomed, as opposed to having the door slammed in his face. And you found, tell me the percentage again that you found that you thought were welcoming, 400 and something?
440 only in this country.
Oh, but they
out of the whole examination?
The ones they're in the actual guide, there's only 440.
Yes. My greatest hope was that now we're in Europe, that we would actually take on some of their attitudes to children. Because over the years, I've been appalled at what I've seen, and we don't realise that this discrimination, which is what it is, actually is one of the causes for abuse in this country. Because some of our parents, as you say, have no experience from their own parents, and they think that when they're out with their children, they must be quiet, they must be good, and they will hit them in public. They cry, they will say, shut up, people are looking at you. Our inhibited temperament, particularly in the south, not in Wales, not in Scotland, but certainly down here, has a lot to answer for. It's this
Our viewers north of St Albans will be delighted by this programme. South of St Albans are going to get extremely tight-lipped.
I think they have a lot more to offer, and they do welcome children.
What do you want to... Sorry.
Yes, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, in England, the public generally ignore children because abroad, like in Italy, you walk down the main street and everybody smiles at you and says things. And like in hotels, and I've been to a hotel, and I stood for ages with my nose above the reception desk holding a key, waiting to give it in, and they just ignore you. In Italy, it would never happen. They just sort of, whenever they see a child, they just help them, and they want to do things for them.
I mean, you are here as a representative of the warm, affectionate, caring European fraternity. There must be villains in other countries as well. I withdraw the word villains. There must be prejudice in other countries as well.
Well, I was very much part of a very happy family. I was the fifth one, actually, to receive a lot of love. I think that's the words, when you have care of love for children, automatically transmit to others. I find it very incredible that you have to have discussion like this. Already this says that it's very much wrong in the system, in the education, in many fields in this country. I'm sorry if I have to say that. In Italy, there are also problems, naturally, with children growing up later on, drugs and so on, but this is something else. But you have the acceptance of small children as very much part of life. They live every single phase of life. They are brought up to go to the restaurant, to go to any place, because they have to learn. I mean, if you don't have this process of taking children with you, it's very sad for you.
I'm coming this, I've just got two more things to do this side, and I'm coming this side, sorry. I want to raise the question of bricks and mortar. It's fine to talk about some hotels being bad and some hotels being good, but there is also the question, I think, about the extent to which shops, department stores, supermarkets, etc., do any spending to try to actually provide facilities for mothers and fathers as they traipse short and right. Now, you're the mother care chain, so we've said that. You're working at it, but you haven't got it 100% right yet, have you?
We are working on it. We're continually working on it. At the moment, we do have 78 mothers' rooms in our stores. And by that, what I mean is we do provide changing facilities. We do provide nappies at request. We do provide facilities for heating babies' feeds. We have customer toilets in our stores as well. Any stores that haven't got customer toilets, our staff facilities are made available. We try and cater for the mother with her prams and her pushchairs and also wheelchairs by having wide gangways in our stores.
May I ask when you started?
Who was saying something?
May I ask when you started?
We surveyed the shops. We did a similar survey to what you did with the hotels. In Haringey, it was initiated by the Haringey Council to look at the accessibility of shopping areas in Haringey. We planners and the mothers with the pushchairs and the wheelchairs, we went out to look at the shops, and in most of the cases we found that the facilities provided in certain shops, like wide doors and having no steps, or provision of toilets or nappy changing areas or baby feeding areas, are not there, which makes life extremely difficult for mothers.
Well, frankly,
we even found
if a store is being run, which is not unreasonable, in pursuit of profit, I presume what is happening is that they're saying, are we really going to increase our profits or diminish our profits by spending money on facilities which we think...
Oh, no. There is tremendous pressure on margins for retailers, but we're involved in designing for retailers, and all major retailers in this country are hyper aware of their customer profiles. And if it's a superstore or Sainsbury's, Asda, Tesco, or whatever, they are hyper aware that 80% women shoppers, which is their sort of market, have a lot of children, and therefore they must cater, but they've also got to balance it with the whole nightmares of lack of space and actually making a sales return. And whether you're designing the checkout or whatever, that's one issue. But the real issue, actually, in retailing, I think, is that you actually have to think about staff and service, because you can actually handle the fact that perhaps baby shoes are upstairs in a store if the staff, when you walk in there, say, can I help you with that buggy? Allow me to help you. I'll get that down for you. No problem. And that's the biggest bugbear for retailers and supermarkets and all these people. They have to actually educate their staff to actually come up with the right service.
I suspect the words, can I help you, are not used very often. I mean, does anyone ever say to you, can I help you?
Very, very rarely when I've had children in tow, but I do think that what you've just been saying about the sort of design of shops, I mean, it is quite interesting, because yet again, on the continent, it's absolutely normal to find creches in quite a lot of superstores, to find very adequate changing rooms and things like that. It is partly, isn't it, about what the expectation is, what the retailers actually expect to have to provide if they want to attract particular kinds of customers. If 80% of the customers are actually women with children, which is the case in some superstores, why the hell are the women saying, well, we're not going to come here?
Is there anybody here who has an instance where they feel that they were totally, frankly, had the door slammed in their face in a store? And we've talked about hotels. Well, I mean, in a store, are there really unhelpful ones?
I've had correspondence with them.
Yes.
Yes?
I went into a shoe shop. I have twins of 2 and a 4-month-old baby, and I also have 6 other children. To do a bit of maths then, I have 6 other children, so I have 9 altogether. I went into a store to try and get my twins some shoes. Now, I wasn't able to get the shoe department, none needed to say was upstairs. It always is for children. I cannot carry 3 children up the stairs. They are not old enough to cope with the stairs themselves.
There was no escalator and no lift.
No facilities for taking them up. And when I asked, could I have some help, I was firmly put in my place that it was my problem.
Yes, have you had that situation?
No, I haven't actually. I was just saying, I know it's very much a problem. I mean, I've got a son who's 3, you know, when you go into shops, and I work as a general manager at Marshall Street Leisure Centre, and we offer a facility whereby parents can drop their children off. We actually are in the West End, and they go shopping. We look after them. We entertain the children.
You can't buy children shoes without their feet with you.
I appreciate that. But often parents want to go shopping, especially for Christmas presents.
Yeah.
The last thing I would want to do is to drag my son around, especially since he'd be able
Sure.
to see the Christmas presents I'm buying. And, you know...
So you want a place where you can leave the child?
That's right. I think that would be helpful.
So now we're going up here. Now I've gone up here. You actually do a certain element of design and offering proposals to stores, supermarkets, etc., etc.
Well,
how often do you get turned down by them? Do they say, no, thank you, we're not spending that kind of money?
Well, we're builders of shopping centres, and we are at the moment building 3 major centres in the London area. And I can offer you a word of hope, because in our centres we put in baby care rooms where mothers can feed their children and change their nappies and look after them properly. We have play groups where people can leave their children
while they do the Christmas shopping.
While they do their shopping, or some of their children, if they don't have to take all of them into the shoe shop. And we have food courts where the family can eat together and have a variety of food and children's portions as well. In our shopping centres, because of the way we clean them and everything, then it's accessible all over to buggies, because we have to take cleaning machines anyway. So there are plenty of lifts and there's plenty
there is a move. There is a
ramps.
move you think in a positive direction in some areas, but not all the way.
Well, it so happens that we build very large shopping centres. Now, there are, in the London area, there are not many large shopping centres. It so happens, until we built ours. But it is partly a function of size and space.
I cut you off before. So I cut you off before, yes.
Sorry, no, I want to say for 4 years the National Childbirth Trust and various other organisations involved in childcare have been trying to promote the National Baby Care Symbol, which we award to premises that offer private seating for breastfeeding mother, running water, changing table, towels in a bin. It doesn't take that much room to provide that much. We've had great difficulty finding anybody that qualifies for the symbol or wants to qualify for it. And I would encourage, Mothercare obviously do, in many of their stores, but I would encourage...
Well, let me turn this upside down. Okay, there's a symbol which, if parents see out in a shop, means the shop has got to a certain level of reward. There is some signs of change on the horizon. But if you turn it upside down, to what extent do shopkeepers feel, no matter how much the symbols, no matter how much the creches and the nappy changing facilities and the escalators and the caring staff, at the end of the day, some mothers don't bother. Don't bother to try to bring up their child in a way which means that it will automatically function well in that part of life.
From being brought up in such a way that, you know, there's something wrong with children. They're not figured into the larger scheme of things.
Let me turn it on you and say, what do you regard the responsibility of the parent as being?
I regard the responsibility...
Do they bring up a child to have total freedom or to be, in a certain extent, disciplined?
To be functional.
What does functional
to be able to
mean?
go out in public. That's right. To be functional, to be happy, to be not as a pet like you would take to the Westminster Dog Show that'll snap on command, but someone that, because they're concerned about other people's problems, because they're concerned about their own environment, that they don't litter, that they don't do this, because it's coming from deep inside them, not just because they're supposed to react when somebody says something, but because, you know, like I teach my kids to never to throw stuff on the ground because it dirties up your environment.
But,
you know,
if they do throw stuff on the ground, do you shout at them, slap them, or merely quietly have a conversation with them?
Pick that up, please.
Victoria, what about you as a disciplinarian? Are you a disciplinarian with your family? Do you believe you have a disciplinary responsibility?
Yes, of course. Yes, it's by example. It's as I said earlier, it's teaching them how to operate together in a social environment around the table. That doesn't mean you all sit in silence, but possibly that's what people are worried about, is actually conversations in public places. Listening to what was being said, I thought, well, I wonder what we would think of a society if you went to your shop door and you had the cigarette with a red line through it, the dog with a red line, the kid with a red line through it. You would get an indication that you know, they didn't like children an awful lot, certainly in public places, but probably not anywhere. Perhaps we're missing that.
Can I just say something?
Do you want change? You can have the last message in this
The
programme.
bottom of it is children are very, very precious. You can't replace them for anything in the world, and if we only valued them as what they should be, something very precious, to be loved, to be looked after, and brought up in the best way you can bring them up, you wouldn't have this problem.
Just one last thing.
No, you can't. I'm going to him. If you had a chance as a young man to take your children to hotels, would you have let them splash around and make a noise in swimming pools?
I would try very hard to prevent them doing that.
See you next week. You would have actually said, now, come on, swim quietly and behave yourself. And make sure you don't make anywhere wet.
Christmas is coming, and so are the relatives. Are you dreading the family get-together? Do you have stories to tell about Christmases past and things that went wrong with your other half, or with your in-laws and relatives? If so, call the time, the place now on 0898 345 499. That's 08